ravine that if we had made a wrong move, we'd have died. And so we all kind of scooted over in the middle of the road, and it ain't like anybody was coming. And when we stopped the next time, he got on to you, didn't he, about being over, or me or something, and he was like, don't need to be that close to the edge, to the middle. And Scott was like, I'm not getting over there on the edge and fall off this mountain, you know.
Yeah, he's probably been snowmobiling for a long time.
Oh, he said, oh, everybody's been on a jet ski, you know. I said, no, I haven't. There was no instructions, we just got on and rode.
50 miles out there and 50 miles back, something
Yeah,
like that.
it was beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't do that part.
All right, we're gonna try something a little different here today. I should group up. Let's get about 3 groups here. However, y'all can do it, or I can put everybody in a group.
You put us in a group.
All right. Let's see. I guess if you'll join Miss Dixon, Miss Marie there, and we'll put Wayne and Jeff together, and then we'll keep the. Unless they want to split up, we'll keep the Davidson
In
clan
this
together.
competition, you're gonna ditch us. New alignment. He doesn't wanna hold up this team.
It's nothing, as I said, it's just an old teaching trick, we're gonna let y'all do the work. So, just starting off with kind of the outline, how we're gonna carry out things, and gonna let you, there'll be some, what makes us Americans? For example, what unifies us with an American in Los Angeles or New York City? That's about the most extreme examples I could think of where we'd be different.
I don't think our language, we all speak English,
Yeah, so-
is the unity.
All right.
So we would.
Yeah, y'all discuss that right there.
Southern English, is that not what you mean?
Yeah. So we just.
Well, what makes us American? What's the one thing that we can, again, what makes me as American as a person that lives in the Bronx, New York, or in LA?
I was born in the United States.
So,
You said our language.
Of course, we're
You
getting
have
less
here?
and less, because
so what do you think?
illegals, they don't learn English.
What makes you American?
Well, yeah, what's the one thing that I'm American too, so what's that,
Means you were born in the United States.
as far as, and again, okay. I mean, there's no right or wrong here.
Yeah. And what do we have in common with people when we meet them in other parts of the world?
Yeah.
Would be our language.
Okay,
And that's the first thing that would make us recognize.
All right. We're on the right track. We're getting characteristics here, right? But what is the one thing, or what is a thing? What is it though that, I was born in the United States.
You now?
What's that?
Are we supposed to be sharing with you now?
Well, it's if you're ready. I mean,
We're ready.
all right, what y'all got? Or I can send you out.
We said, our constitution,
All right, Constitution, okay.
as Wayne said, our language.
Language,
We're born within the borders of the United States,
all right,
and our traditions.
all right. In the back,
Our liberties and freedoms.
freedoms and liberties. Where's that found? Where are those? I
In
mean,
our government.
all right.
Bill of Rights.
Yeah, Bill of Rights, Constitution. If you could go back, really, I mean, and again, getting a little deeper here, you had to say, is there an event that we can all latch onto that makes us Americans? Declaration. It could go all the way. You could go all the way back to that, couldn't you? Possibly. That was just where, I guess it planted the seed, and then, of course, from 1776 up to, 1787 is when the Continental or the Constitution Convention occurred, right? Something like that, and then once the Constitution was ratified, that made us the country. Then, I mean, officially. You get what? Does that make sense? Or, I'm not a history teacher by any means. I teach science and stuff, but yeah, basically, if you go back to it, the Constitution probably is the document that everybody that's an American says, hey, this is what makes us, And then we got all sorts of things that can happen throughout the course of history. I mean, I think about it. We're all back when in 2001 at 9/11. You know, one of the few times. You know, unfortunately, now where you felt the pure unity of the country. It wasn't no this side, that side. It was all Americans that day, and for a while.
And yet it's odd to think Nathan's brother's little boy is an American citizen, but he's never been here.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't speak the language. But he's an American citizen because they got him that when he was born, because Will Young was an American citizen, even though his mom's not. He is, but he's never been here.
Sure.
Taiwan.
So we get that, but again, you know, what unifies us as Americans is kind of thing. And like I say, if you read through the list, I think you understand kind of where I'm going with this. But that was just one thing there. You know, something there to hang our hat on. We go further back, you know, for like my mom's generation. You know, they remember, you know, and again, this is not something that, but, you know, talking about events that kind of, you know, I can remember Dad used to talk about, everybody remembers where they were when they announced President Kennedy was shot.
Oh, I definitely
Or
remember that.
I can remember when President Reagan was shot. I was coming back from a checkup. I'd had my tonsils out. I was on the way back from Birmingham at the hospital. And then December 7th, 1941. So there's all sorts of things there that everybody looks back. You know, those events, yes, unify us and things. But what's the, you know, if we look at, you know, is there one thing, you know, probably the Constitution, what guarantees, you know, the freedoms and the liberties that we have. So from that, just talking about, you know, again, just wanted to kind of get our thinking on what are things that we can latch on that unifies us, kind of where we're heading here in the lesson. So, you know, as we've gone through, you know, we looked at, as we got the first chapter in Philippians, which is, we're going in the 4th week on that. But, you know, like the first lesson I taught, you know, we looked at extremes. We talked about how, you know, you can have too much legalism or too much tolerance, and how Jesus kind of modeled how we should, you know, show love for a sinner, whereas also still confronting the sin. That was in the first lesson. And the next week, Paul talking about the adversity he was facing. You know, how he was glad the gospel was being furthered. Last week, looking at Paul was, you know, the choices last week, where you remember all the choices we had. It was like a good choice, you know, win-win choices. It was all good. Paul had the choice, you know, he said that he would, you know, if it was rather up to him, he would rather just go ahead to die and go be with the Lord, because, you know, he said to die is the gain, etc., etc. But he said also, hey, if I'm here though, I'm still going to further the gospel. And so they're talking about living with joy, no matter what the circumstances is. So living for Christ, to live is for Christ, and to die is gain. So this week, after all that, it kind of given the Philippians kind of an update right there. And so now, as we look at it, let's same thing here right here. If you got someone right there, read verse 1 or Philippians 1:27. And I want you to, like I said, I got 3 questions there I want us to discuss here, so y'all can come to, you know, as I said, if you want to go ahead and answer it to perhaps that gets somebody else going, or or from there, and then we can get into it from that point.
So read the verse.
Yeah, just like I said, just discuss it right there with your group right there. Those 3 questions read verse 27.
As a group.
Yeah, you can, however y'all want to do it.
I can't
Anything for the first one yet? Yeah, there's no right or wrong answers on these, this is all opinion.
How do you conduct yourself at work?
Yeah, it's like,
Or how do you, is it worthy, or how do you represent? Would it be, which one would it be?
yeah, I may have left off a comma or something there, wasn't my strong suit there. But, basically, if we read it right there, only let your conversation be as it becometh the gospel of Christ. So, you know, there's some things there as we look at it. You know, the Greek, you know, as we look at it, you know, it says, only let your conversation be as it becometh the gospel of Christ. So that's the kind of way when I was like, okay, you know, best represents maybe, or worthy of, you know, I put worthy of right there. In other words, got me on the spot here, right? But say on the, like I said, on you know, you conduct yourselves in a manner, you know, conducting yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel.
Are we supposed to be doing this in our group?
Yeah, I mean, I can discuss it right there. I mean, that's why I got you together. But I mean, so that's kind of what, you know, worthy of the. We don't deserve the gospel, obviously, but once we accept it, what shows that our appreciation for it, I guess, might be a better way to word that.
The way that you conduct yourself or talk or anything, from then on, if you're going to represent, you're going to say you represent Christ as being a Christian, then everything you say or do to the person that you just told you're a Christian, that you're around, letting people, or whoever you're around, if you're representing Christ, then you need to be on your best behavior.
Sure. Now, does that mean I got to be perfect?
No.
Yeah.
But, and that's also the thing I brought up before about the bumper sticker thing. I mean, you're gonna, yeah, if you're gonna put a bumper sticker on your car,
Yeah.
a bumper sticker, you better drive there.
Yeah. Well, you can say that about Twitter or Facebook if you're going to have in your bio, and then you're posting stuff or posting yourself questionable content. That's what aggravates me is I see people, they're posting profanity or.
It's got so bad with me that I won't even wear a player jersey anymore. I won't wear a player jersey or any kind of jersey of any kind of able person. I don't want nothing to do with it because I don't want to be linked with that person because I don't know what they're doing.
Sure. Good what you say.
I don't want to be linked with no other person in the world that's walking around either.
Control what you can control.
Yeah.
All right, we got something, anything?
Are we doing just number one?
Just number one, like I said.
Okay, well, we said, how we talk to people, our language that we use, kindness, helping others. People should know people should know by the way we, I can't handle my back of people.
You should be on the other side.
I know, but I can't communicate with my group on that.
Yeah.
How we act, I mean, people should know that we're of Christ.
Can you tell when you're out in public, can you tell people that maybe, that you don't, strangers that may or may not be Christians?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
the language, one way is kind of the language and how they act, you know.
Sometimes what they're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or not.
Yeah, right, yeah,
I mean, those are indicators, right?
but we don't really.
We don't really know, do we?
I've met two people in my life that I remember. One of them was a truck driver, but he never said a word to me, and I could tell without him ever, just the look on his face, the way he carried himself smiling, never said a word to him, and then we got talking. But I just, first time I seen him, I was like, yeah, just, cause he was just so outgoing and so nice and everything is just, I don't know, but the look on his face is just
You know what I
almost
call
a
that?
glow, huh?
You know what I call that?
But,
He has a yes face.
yeah, yeah. And then another one was a guest preacher we had one time, and I cannot remember his name for nothing. But that, you know, he was gonna be a preacher anyway, but the look that he had was different than anybody I've ever seen before.
Anything back there to add?
Basically the same thing.
Yeah,
It's
there you
a
go.
lifestyle that lines up with the Bible
Sure.
and the commandments.
You know, attitudes, things. I mean, we gotta be perfect? Or are we gonna be perfect?
Never possible.
Try to be. I mean, well, I would say try. I don't know if that's a good way to do it. Like I said, a friend of mine, he talks about how today, perfection and things like that, it's just, he said, just try to be your best. You know, we can't be expected to be perfect, because we can't by nature. All right, a few things we're going to discuss right here. At the time, how would you describe the characteristics of Rome at this time? That Philippians were written, the Roman Empire.
I think it's probably around the time Nero was emperor.
Yeah, Nero's emperor.
And so
They were-
it's going to be right in the transition time to where the Christians are being allowed, but not being yet persecuted
Mhm.
to the extent that they're hunted down and killed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's right there in that transition time.
I got you. Far as from a political standpoint, Rome, was there any equals to them at that time?
No.
Were they the world power?
They were, multiple gods they worshipped,
Mhm.
multiple deities,
Yeah.
pagan temples everywhere, immorality everywhere.
But from a military standpoint, you would say they were the superpower of the time.
Yeah.
Correct. I think it was, saw something, citizen Romanus or something. I am a Roman citizen. Basically, if a Roman citizen was harmed, the retribution was extreme. So they were they were kind of the leader of the power of the world at that time, right? So from there, let's from that point, could we say, as Paul is talking to the Philippians right here, they were Romans, correct? And could we draw a parallel to a Christian and the Philippian Christian, what they were kind of dealing with, what we are today in the United States? I mean, United States, military, superpower, right? There were certain expectations for Philippians as a Roman citizen that they were expected to adhere to. But what is Paul trying to tell them right here? Where does their first citizenship lie in reality?
With Christ?
Mm-hmm. So it's talking about there as he says in verse, as we go from there, read what this person says. It says, becometh to the gospel, and basically being the word here. Here's where it comes from. There's the Greek. There's a word that's being used right here. It means to conduct it's kind of translated in the Greek to conduct as a citizen. It says Paul is looking beyond earthly citizenship to heavenly citizenship. Every Christian is a heavenly citizen, and with this privilege comes certain responsibilities to live for Christ. Now, let me ask you this. If if I am living as a good heavenly citizen, chances are that's going to trickle down to me being a good citizen of the United States or a good citizen of Alabama or anything else right there, correct? So we go from that point, as it's trying to say right here, that even though we are citizens of the United States and things, and we have all that unifies us, there's even something else that unifies us more as Christians, obviously, and that's Christ. And then, we're obligated here to live according to the principles of Christ, or to the principles of Christ. And if we're doing that, then our citizenship as a member of the United States should take care of itself. Is everything all right with him? Or is it?
He said his blood sugar was dropping, and he's gonna go get a pack of crackers.
Okay. I was worried. I knew you looked a little panicked right there. I was scared.
I should've went with him.
He was what?
He said his blood sugar, felt like his blood sugar.
Sorry,
was
sir.
a little shaky.
So as we get to that, outside of our Christian lives, what other elements of society could determine, obviously we're, Christian, as a Christian right there, Christ, that's our standard. As citizens of the United States, are there other things that maybe define sets of conduct today in society? Standards of conduct. What are some other things that more worldly or secular things? Laws, okay, that's one.
That's all I'm thinking of.
Yeah, laws is one. What about, let's think of it from a little younger stand. What about peers?
Oh, yeah. Peer pressure.
Been told this, as a coach, there are certain societal standards people think define me as that, or actions or behaviors. Get out there and yell at them, coach. Why? It's my job to instruct and fix. If I yell at them or if I just teach them. I've had that held against me in evaluations before. And I said, I'm not going to change who I am just to meet a stereotype that society may have put on my position.
There's a disappearing Southern code of morality and ethics.
Mm-hmm. So it could be peers, it could be friends. Like I said, overall society, let's see what else we have right here. Let's see.
Traditional expectations.
Traditional expectations of the world, our peers. There are lots of things there, because at the end of the day, when you meet meeting those expectations instead of those of a Christian, which one's going to get the quicker? The quicker? Trying to think of the word here. Instant gratification, I guess. When we meet, Coach Kurt's tough, man. Look how he yells at those guys down there. Or whatever. Or that teacher's mean. She did, he or she don't put up with nothing in her classroom, or anything like that. There are just certain, when you meet those stereotypes, society as a whole, and I'm talking about the world, gives you more instant fame. I don't know. Yeah, whereas, just I guess another example would be like this. What was the expectation of Jesus from? What were the Jews looking for in the Messiah? A military leader.
They were kind of looking for a king.
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
would come in and take it.
Hey, that Messiah, probably telling them Romans when they're getting perfect. Hey, when that Messiah gets here, yeah, you're gonna get it, man.
And a ruler.
Yeah, a ruler. So he's like, yeah, your day's coming. Wait till my big brother gets, you know what I'm saying. So-
Like your daddy gets
So I think
old.
Jesus, and when I sat there, I was really upset when I had that evaluation, and then finally that hit me. It's like, Jesus didn't meet and that's just where that's where I got peace on that. I just said, I'm just going to be who I'm going to be, and and then we'll go from there. Again, we're on verse 27, 20 minutes ago, so I don't know if this is good enough. All right, so from there, what are here's the last question. I don't have this question written down. What are some things that could sow division in a church? again, because we look at it, what does Paul say? He says, at the last part of verse 27, it says, I may hear of your affairs, that ye stand fast in one spirit, with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. And that was that part of that verse right there that was the introduction. What do we hang, what unifies us as Christians? Obviously, Jesus Christ. What's the event that we can go back to? That we're all, if I'm a Christian in Eastern Europe, here in good old Alabama,
The birth of the crucifixion.
the crucifixion. So that's the thing. That's the, that's what makes us up, that's what makes us, all the Christians, So as we talk about one accord, obviously, the opposite of that, of course, is, and it makes me sad when I see division in churches, when I see churches being split apart. There are a number of things that, and we think about it, at the end of the day, y'all good? All right. So at the end of the day, we get caught up in all these, this, that. I wanted blue carpet, I wanted red, so I'm going to go start my own church with blue carpet. Or this or that, or what, a lot of things. Yeah, it's okay to care about those, but we can't lose sight of the fact of what's the one thing that unifies us. It goes all the way back to what Christ did for us. And we see that. I even wrote down here, have we seen this? And because let me ask you this: when the world sees a church splitting right there, what message does that send?
It's not good.
It's not good at all.
And it's like Matthew and I were talking a while ago about the Methodist church.
Mm-hmm.
I've got friends that their church has changed its name, or like in Winfield, there are 2 separate Methodist churches now. And that's just happened within the last year.
Mm-hmm.
In Hamilton changed their name within the last year. Hackleburg Methodist Church changed their name within the last year, and that was a division over church beliefs.
Mm-hmm. How could, is it possible in a town that 2 congregations can sow a division?
That what now? 2
congregations in a town sow division? That, when I say division, I'm talking about where it shows that the church is not, those 2 as Christians, we're not on the, the one thing that unifies us, again, don't you think that's what the unsaved world should see us? So I think, as I said, it's like, again, and I've shared this before, I didn't get saved till I was 18 years old. So and the thing that one of the questions I asked was, if we're all, what's the difference between a Baptist and this, whatever, when it's all should come, that was always the thing that's, I get, different denominations, and I get, there's nothing, I just never understood, shouldn't, in my mind, when I was a young Christian, like, shouldn't all the churches just be the same? Because at the end of the day, it's all about, that's the way it was taught to me. I don't know. So, different traditions and I guess stuff like that. But, so as we move on, again, spent way too much time there in verse 27. Verse 28, I'm going to pick to kind of modify here as we go. And in nothing terrified by your adversaries, which is to them evident token of perdition, but to you of salvation and that of God. So here, what you think about the Philippians, and Brother Nathan hit touched on a little bit right here. What would be besides, you said persecutions at this time of Rome, they were allowing Christians, but they weren't being rounded up yet. So it wasn't really the Romans, even though they probably get. Who else would be giving issues to the Philippians right here? You think?
Anyone that wasn't a Christian, pretty much.
Anyone? Okay. What would be some of the? What do you think might be some of those?
It would have been other religions.
What's that?
It would have been other religious beliefs.
Sure. Maybe the pagans that we mentioned a while ago. What about the Jews at the time? They were giving Christians a hard time, weren't they? They, because, the legalism and things like that. So we had that, and so Paul is telling them right there, that hey, don't be terrified, don't be afraid of your adversaries. We face it today, don't we? But at the end of the day, the question number 2 there, why should we be fearless in the face of adversity? Now, there's different types of adversity. Me walking up to a stranger and trying to witness, that's an adversity for me, but that's nothing compared to, say, a missionary in China right now. Because that's real. Or in parts of Muslim countries and things where you got missionaries where it's against the law for them to be sharing the gospel.
I know this is not your question, but it just made me think. I get exhausted hearing about how hard we have it here in the United States as Christians. We do not have it anywhere like, we're not persecuted like people in countries where you're not allowed to be a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when Robert, he went on a trip to Egypt or somewhere, and he come back and he gave us a speech. Remember that time at the other church when Robert come and he done that whole speech about when he went over there and everything that they had to do? And he was telling us like over there, they wasn't persecuted, Christians wasn't, but you had to have your religion was on your ID card. If you were Muslim, it said Muslim. If you were Christian, it said Christian or whatever. And then in the Christian churches, they always had a government official sit in the back of the church every service to watch to hear what you were saying, make sure you didn't say anything out of line or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was Egypt. But remember, he gave us a whole talk about it. He told us everything that he'd seen over there.
Yep. And as we think about it, you put yourself in that situation. You're trying to share the gospel, the true gospel right there, and then knowing if you got a government official you offend back there, it may be stopped and arrested then, thrown in jail. But even so, if we're, for the people, Paul says, hey, don't be afraid. Why?
Because he's got our backs.
Who does?
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus got it back. It's all, end of the day, no matter what adversity or situation we're in, that's the hope right there. And it talks about here that, a few things right here. The word that they are used right here to be terrified or to be afraid, it's a Greek word that was used to describe a herd of horses when they've been started. You ever seen that? If a herd of cow or horses get startled and they all just, it's the same word that describes to be startled and cause a stampede. So from that, basically, we think that, we put our, that Christ's strength is enough because, even though you think about it, opponents of the gospel, at the end of the day, who's behind the opponents of who's behind the opponents of the gospel? Or who's behind the opponent of the gospel? Satan. And what do we know in Revelation tells us? Satan's going to be defeated. That's the truth. So as long as we can remember, hey, if we're being opposed, Satan's behind that. Because what's Satan trying to do? Yeah, he wants to do what? Oppose the gospel. Is he trying to create division in churches? Yeah, no doubt. And we have to remember, who's the source behind that, and then who's our strength because we know. And moving on right there, from that point, the second part it says that which to them is an evident token of perdition, but to you of salvation that of God. What does perdition mean?
Damnation or destruction.
Yeah. Damnation or destruction. I remember when I first word what I think there was a Tom Hanks movie called The Road to Perdition. I didn't understand. I thought it was a positive thing. I was like, ooh, no, I don't want to be that. I don't like that. But So what that does is when we show strength in the face of, when we rely on Christ, what that does, that tells the unbeliever, that shows their path as well. And it shows their path to perdition, to damnation or destruction. And also that strength, as we stand right there strong, it shows, it shows our salvation. It says the fearlessness of Christians is in their witness to the world shows God is with them. The persecutor sees the Christian stand firm, not wavering, not giving an inch concerning the gospel. This is a sign to him of his lost condition. And, and it says the fearlessness of a Christian is also a sign to the Christian that God is with him and that salvation is real. He sees God at work in his life, and he knows he can, when he sees that, he can truly have faith. So we have to remember also, as a true Christian, we're never going to be respected. We're not even going to be liked with the unsaved world, or we could be. We could be respected. I misread that. We must remember that the true Christian may be respected and even liked by the unsaved world, but the unsaved world will never accept the Christian. So, and it says here why? Because the Christian and the non-Christian are on two different wavelengths. So as we go from there, Paul has just said to them, hey, basically conduct ourselves in a way that's befitting of the gospel. We're going to get opposition. Don't be afraid of that, because of the strength we have in God. And then we get to verse 29 right there. It says that for unto you is given in behalf of Christ not only to believe on him, but to also suffer for his sake. So basically, now that one right there, you think about that, that's one of those, it kind of made me, and it's amazing. And I think that's because when I read verses, my experiences that I attach to might be different from Nathan or from Frida or Wayne, or for me, it got me thinking. It's like when I coached high school ball. Boy, I had a lot of guys. Man, yeah, coach, I won't be on the football team. They did, but when it came time for the work, when it came time to be out there in 100-degree heat, man, that's kind of what I thought about the suffering right there. So we get a gift, obviously, right there. Through Christ, it says, for unto you is given in behalf of Christ, not only to believe on him. So, hey, we got the gift of faith, but also the second part of verse 29, what does it say? It says we're also going to do what? Suffer for his sake. Now let's talk about that for a second. It says, I got have faith as a gift. I think that's pretty. What suffering is he talking about right here? Or what do you think?
Well, Paul did a lot of physical suffering.
Yeah.
I mean,
They were directly related to
Yeah.
his preaching, wasn't
the beatings and all of the things that he
So
went through.
Paul was truly persecuted. Eh? Yeah, no doubt. What about today? What suffering could this be for us today? We just said we're not being rounded up and arrested. But how do we suffer?
In some cases, ridicule.
Okay.
And the country was founded with Christian values, but we're far from our foundation now, in my opinion.
Is suffering for Christ means us like enduring disease or loss or sickness, calamity, heartbreak? Is that what he's referring to, you think?
I think it could mean as big of a thing as you want to put it into all the way to death, or as little of a thing as somebody walking by and saying some kind of snide remark.
Sure. Because those things like they're being sick, those are just normal things of life, aren't they? And I think here's what it says. Suffering as the result of taking up the cross and witnessing for Jesus Christ, willing to pay the price no matter what. Such suffering for the gospel is a blessing and a gracious privilege. It says often because here's the deal. And I know, I talk about Brother Nathan when I read it. Witnessing for Christ becomes tedious, burdensome, and sometimes it could maybe be discouraging because of the opposition or lack of visible results. But we have to remember, it has been ordained by God that all Christians should and will suffer for Christ. This is proof of our salvation, and the reward for, and it comes with this. Basically, we start getting caught up in, yeah, man, I witnessed to 12 people this week, and they just kind of blew me off, I can get frustrated, can't it? And at that point, though, that's like I said, that's nothing. Or it could be like Paul, or it could be like a missionary in a country where it's illegal. There's different types of suffering there. You got physical suffering, you got mental suffering and stuff, I think. And this right here, a little bit of a narrative. Basically, it's like 3-4 paragraphs. I will give it to you right here, but basically it tells a story about 2 missionaries were coming home back when Teddy Roosevelt was president from Africa, and he'd been to Africa on one of his safaris. And there's a big fanfare for the president and stuff, and the 2 missionaries, the husband, look what all we've done for nobody's reckoned. Here we are in obscurity. We're getting no fanfare, but look what they're doing for the president. All that, and they got, of course they sailed across, and he was like, yeah, I bet you when we get to the port of New York right there, there's going to be a big reception for him and stuff, and nothing for us, but look at the work we're doing and stuff. That's taking about 3 paragraphs of a story and putting it together. My first question was, what was the initial problem that the husband had right there? What would be? Let me see how I wrote this question down. What is the initial issue with the missionary husband right there?
He's looking for recognition.
Yeah,
From people.
from people. And of course, it goes on to say that is what, and again, I don't know if this is a true story or not, it's just narrative, but it just basically said that he's crying out, hey, God's not treating us fairly. Where's my reward? Where's it? And his wife tried to encourage him. She suggested that he go in the bedroom and pray and tell the Lord the whole thing. Says he goes in, he comes out later, and obviously he's feeling a lot better. And he said, I felt bitter about the homecoming I received and no one met us when we returned home. He said, but basically, the Lord put his hand on my shoulder and simply said, and I thought this was good, but you're not home yet. You're not home yet. When we get discouraged, with maybe not, what little earthly reward we receive for suffering for the gospel of Christ, if we get discouraged, we have to remember we are not home yet. That, you think about it, and what when we have our homecoming, how glorious is it going to be? And that's what we have to constantly keep our, keep in focus right there. So, and when we think of it from that point, and when we get to heaven one day, all this fame and stuff on earth it's going to be nothing, is it? So, and we'll probably be sitting there going, man, I can't believe, you ever done that? Man, I can't believe I made a big deal out of that. And that's probably what's going to happen, when we get there. So, all right, from there, and I got to get this closed up right here. So, and verse 30, having the same conflict which he saw in me, and now here to be in me. So now Paul is basically telling them, hey, we're sharing in similar content. So that can be something else as Christians that we share. Obviously what unifies us is Christ, but do we share similar experiences with other Christians across the world? Mm-hmm. Different levels and extremes, obviously. But let's see, how did Paul react to the conflicts he faced in the first chapter of Philippians? How would you describe it?
Verse 21.
What does that say?
For me to live is Christ and to die is gain.
Yeah. So his attitude towards it, you could almost say Paul had joy in it, didn't he? He didn't allow it to interfere with how he lived for Christ. And, as we look at it, I think, and understanding this, I think when Paul tells, how can this be encouraging to us as believers is, if we can experience Paul's conflicts, we can also experience his joy in it as well, can't we? If, as long as we approach it the right way. So, I think, and when I read that and read some of the stuff on that, it kind of gave me, because it's, how easy is it for us to get the poor me's? Oh man, I got it so bad. Man, I got to work that double shift today. I go, whatever. Man, got to get up at 4 in the morning. It's easy. We all get the poor me's a lot, don't we? But, and I think, it goes back and I'm like sharing with it how Paul shows us how, how to avoid that. And, how did he react to his conflict? With joy. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago or last week, we said, how can you have joy? Living abundantly. And we hit all those. And so it comes down to it right there. Living, we should, as Christians, make it a point, like I said, do things that Paul talked about. Hey, we're going to face opposition. Don't fear it. And hey, we need to look at the fact that we are going to suffer for Christ, that it says in verse 29 to suffer for his sake. So when we find ourselves in those situations of suffering, not think of it as poor me, but think, hey, man, it's just part of it. Hey, that's right. I'm right there with Paul now. If you start putting yourself thinking of it like that, this is what Paul goes through, and what did he show joy? And so if I handle this the right way, then I can get the same level. I can get out of it what Paul got out of it. Furtherance of the gospel in my suffering. So, all right. Anything else there? So, like I said, kind of as we got going there, I have to rethink the timing on some of that. As far as the group stuff, each group needs to submit a 2-page paper synopsis on what we discussed today. And here's the thing, all my retired teachers, we don't have to deal with AI and Grammarly and all that, and worried about plagiarism and all that. That's the biggest. We get about 2 or 3 a semester. I got to deal with guys that submit papers through AI, and they're like, I'm like, you don't at least tell it to submit it on a 10th grade level. You're using words like PhDs use. I mean, you play wide receiver. They know that's not you. Anyway, they have ways that they can check on that all the time. It's like,
I used to think I was smart, turned in a report on a book that had been made into a movie. That way I could watch the movie.
Yeah, I've done that before. The old Cliff Notes back in the day when I was in the yeah. Cliff Notes, yeah. I can still see the yellow books being sold in the bookstore at the University of Alabama. So.
The problem was a lot of the movies didn't go along with the book.
Oh yeah, I figured that out when I read Friday Night Lights. It's two totally different.
She was my English teacher.
All right. Well, next week, I'll tell you what, it's short, but the month of February is good. We're already 2 months into 2024.
Maybe the only high school teacher that I've
Anyway.
still living. She's still living.
All right, if not, let's close with a word of prayer.
And I was talking about her yesterday.
Lord, again, we're thankful for this day. Thankful for this opportunity to study your word, Lord. And Lord, we're just thankful for the things mentioned here today, Lord, that even though we face opposition, we can have strength in you, Lord, to face that, to be fearless. And Lord, also to understand that when there is suffering, Lord, that's just something that's part of being a Christian, Lord. And again, we just when we find ourselves in those situations, Lord, just to remind us of Paul and the joy and going through that, Lord. And Lord, just give us the strength if we face those trials. Lord, we're just thankful for each and every family here. Be with those who may not be able to be here for whatever the reason. Lord, let them feel your comfort and your control of all situations. Lord, be Brother Nathan's that brings our message, Lord. And Lord, be with the, just all the military, Lord, first responders, Lord, just all of those, Lord, that are sacrificing self for others, Lord, just let them, just be with those and give them safety. And Lord, if someone here doesn't know you as Lord and Savior, let today be the day of salvation. And Lord, if we just ask now all these things in Jesus' name, amen.